Hello everyone, I welcome you to the e-classroom learning program of IASbaba, and I welcome you all to the next module, that is Indian economy, which you are reading. This is a subject which is there in all the 3 stages of the exam, that is prelims, mains and the interview, and it has a profound impact on the syllabus of the examination. So this makes this subject very important. And today, as a part of this introductory session, we will be understanding how to approach economy as a subject and how is this subject interlinked with other subjects. And today we will get a deep understanding about the subject with respect to the UPSC preparation. And I hope you all are excited to know more about that. So let's begin. So students, before we start with the session about what is Indian economy, which is relevant for UPSC, it is always important to know what does the subject talk about? Where does the discipline focus upon? So let us see that. So here, as the slide says, what does economy mean is the first question that we need to understand. So students, whenever the class is going on, I will always relate the concept with the current affairs. This is how your preparation should always go. Whatever happens in the class is where the theory is discussed, here where the concepts are discussed. And what is relevant for UPSC is when you can connect those concepts with the current affairs, connect those concepts with the current happenings. And that is how UPSC preparation is different. So students, always remember this. Connect the concepts that we are doing as a part of the class to the current affairs. And whenever the current affairs class is happening, it is the reverse. Connect the current affairs back to the concepts. This two-way approach is what will make the UPSC preparation of yours relevant and surely will help you get top scores in the exam. So let us begin with our understanding of what does economy mean. So starting with what does economy mean, the first statement says that it is the state of a country or region. It is the state of a country or region in terms of its production and consumption, that's another segment, of goods and services and the supply of money. So this is the definition of what economy means. Let us pay attention to each segment of the definition and let us try to relate the definition to the Indian economy. Students, if you see here, it is the state of a country or region. So you relate that to Indian economy now. What is the state of economy in India right now? Yeah, because today we are suffering through a pandemic called as the corona. We are suffering through a pandemic called corona, where the economy has been locked down for a few months prior. So when the economy was locked down, what really happened was there was no production. The production was absolutely down and the consumption was also absolutely down. So when the production was down and the consumption was down, the entire Indian economy came to a halt. But now the government, to keep the economy back on track, the government has introduced the unlock. If you see now, after the unlock, the cases have been increasing. We almost touched close to 30 lakh and we are standing the second in the world with respect to the number of cases. But the economy has been opened up and we have been unlocking our economy. For what reason? To kick the economy back on track with respect to the production and the consumption. Students, if you remember and if you have seen the news, you would notice that the government has introduced a fiscal stimulus package. I'll be using certain technical words which I'll explain you in a while, but focus on this. The government has introduced a fiscal stimulus package of 20 lakh crore and a lot of support is provided to various sectors to kick back the production. And in turn, the production has increased after the unlock 2.0. But the problem has become is that because of the lockdown, because of the economic slowdown, what is happening is the consumption is not picking up. How to pick up the consumption has been the challenge that the government is tackling right now. What is meant by consumption? Why is the consumption not picked up? To get a simple understanding of that, it is just that there is a huge unemployment that is going across India and the cash flow has been slowed down and the institutions, the financial institutions are unable to process the money to the people for their needs because of various challenges that they are facing. So these are the interlinkages that you need to understand with respect to consumption, which we will be seeing in the further slides and the further part of the subject discussion. So here what you need to understand in the second part of the definition is that the production and the consumption is extremely important for the economy to run. But in India right now, the production has increased, but the consumption is not picking up, and the government is taking active steps to pick up the consumption. And lastly, here when we are talking about consumption, we are talking about goods and services. Today, we are purchasing essential commodities, but are we going much further than that? That is a questionable thing today. So, goods and services consumption has come down, and why it has come down? The reason behind that is the supply of money. And here comes the question, how do we supply money? How do we supply the fuel that the economy needs to run? All this, the steps taken to achieve all these is referred to as economy. Let us see a second perspective or a definition of Indian economy. The second definition says that economy means a careful management of available resources. It says a careful management of available resources. So, what is this? What is meant by available resources? Students, when you think of resource, what comes to your mind? Generally, what comes to your mind is just mineral resources and other tangible resources that you can see. But students, you have to remember another thing is that we also have non-tangible resources which we can tap into. For example, in India, we have a huge population of around 130 crore, and this population is said to be called as demography. Now, if you look around, if you look around your friends or the students around us or the scenario around us, you notice that we have a very young population, but this population is facing a challenge of gainful employment. Or we can say, in other words, today India is having a jobless growth. And if you notice the reason behind that, you see that this demography, the dividend is not derived out of this demography effectively. So, economy is focusing on taking steps to carefully manage the available resources. So, what I mean is that the available resource that we have is the demography, and if we skill our population, if we provide effective health to our population, we can achieve demographic dividend out of this, out of the resources that we have. So, though what I am trying to tell you is that when I say available resources, I just do not mean the tangible resources. We also have non-intangible resources such as human resource, which we can tap into and effectively improve our economy. So, this careful management of our available resources, the discipline that talks about the various steps in the management of the available resources, is referred to as Indian, or is referred to as economy, right? So, in this context and a basic understanding of this term called economy, let us now move ahead and try to see, where does this economy is being asked in the UPSC exam, and what is the limitation with which the discipline is discussed as a part of UPSC examination. So, let us see what it is. So, students, if you see here, in which part of prelim syllabus is Indian economy as a subject is being discussed. And as I told you, when you start a journey, just like how you keep a map and go, similarly in UPSC examination, it is very important to always have the syllabus with you and link the syllabus to the reading that you are doing. So, always we have to read with respect to the UPSC syllabus. So, with this, let us try to see on the screen. As you see on the screen, these are the statements and the keywords given as a part of prelim syllabus. And if you see which part of prelim syllabus are they talking about Indian economy, you will notice that in the fifth statement, which is highlighted in red, is talking about economy. So, let us try to see what are these words that are being used. If you see that the syllabus is talking about economic, the syllabus is talking about economic and social development, you look at the keywords that are being used. So, economy and societal development is being discussed here. Then they are talking about sustainable development. They are using the word called poverty here. They are using the word called inclusion, and try to always, whenever the keyword comes into your mind, always try to think, what do you know about the keyword? That should be our thinking all the time. Brainstorming should be the approach that we always need to follow with respect to UPSC exam. I will teach you how that works in further sessions. Then see what is meant by demographics and see if you are familiar with the word, and talk about social sector initiatives, that is the programs that is taken up by the government, and here they are saying etc. That means that the scope of the subject is beyond what is mentioned as keywords in UPSC syllabus. So students, when you look at the keywords that are being used, just by looking at that you might not get an idea as to where to start from, how to interlink. So that is a challenge faced by most of the students, and I can guarantee you that by the end of the session today you will be clear about what these keywords mean and how to interlink them. Yeah. So this is about the prelim syllabus, and let us try to see if we can figure out further as to what Indian economy is being asked in UPSC in the mains part of it. So if you go to the next part of it, which is the main syllabus, I am linking two subjects as a part of Indian economy also. So here, if you notice, so we have 4 papers in UPSC, that is General Studies paper 1, 2, 3 and 4. Indian economy and agriculture are two subjects which are very much relevant in General Studies paper 3 of mains. So if you look at Indian economy syllabus, the statements that you are seeing on the screen are the ones that are discussing about what could be asked as Indian economy in UPSC. But if you look at the wordings of them, you might not really understand where to start from again, the challenge that is faced. And if you talk about agriculture, students, there are two segments in agriculture as a subject, which I am also pointing out. The two segments of agriculture that we are discussing is the impact of this subject of agriculture is in two subjects. That is, one is it is in geography, where you will be studying about various aspects of agriculture with respect to soils, with respect to climate and many other things you will study as a part of geography, and some segments of agriculture you also study as a part of environment. And another segment of agriculture, always understand this, everything is being done for economy. So the purpose of agriculture, how to improve agriculture, is studied as a part of agriculture economics. So economics of agriculture. So we will be dealing with the economics of agriculture as a part of economy subject and not the geographical angle of agriculture. So this is the basic segmentation in a broad angle. That is, we have to divide the General Studies paper 3 syllabus, which includes economy and agriculture, into two separate segments firstly. And what are the segments that are in economy and what are the segments which are in agriculture. Students, every year a minimum of 8 to 10 questions are being asked as a part of General Studies paper 3 with respect to these two subjects. Hence, it plays a very, very important role to know about the in-depth study of these subjects, right? So let us try to see now that if you are looking at these wordings, you might be confused as to where to start from, how to approach the subject. Yeah. So let us now see how to approach economy as a subject. Yeah. How to approach economy as a subject. Students, if you see on this screen here, the General Studies paper comprises of 4 segments as we discussed. It comprises of paper 1, which comprise of subjects such as history, geography and Indian society. We have paper 2, which comprise of polity and governance, international relations and social justice. We have paper 3, which comprise of economy and agriculture, environment and ecology, science and technology, internal security and disaster management. And we have paper 4, which comprises of ethics, integrity and aptitude. So by now you would have studied the syllabus and got an idea about what all are the subjects in which papers they are. But students, where do you find economy and agriculture as a part of the General Studies syllabus? You will notice that in paper 3 you find economy and agriculture as a syllabus. But let me help you understand how the syllabus is designed. The economy and agriculture, though it is a part of paper 3, students, you need to understand that the economy as a subject has its underlying impact, underlying current with respect to all the subjects. So it has its linkage with all the subjects. That is how we need to first have an understanding of economy. And if you look at this map, the smart art, you will notice that the economy, whenever you are reading any current affairs that you are reading related to economy should always be placed at the center. Yeah, economy should always be placed at the center, and link all the subjects with economy. Not all the time all the subjects get interlinked, but in a general understanding, economy has a linkage with all the subjects. So let us see how with certain examples. So if you look at economy with history, students, in history there are various segments. For example, if you come in the chronology right from ancient India, when Indus Valley civilization was formed, various civilizations around the world was formed. Yeah, why religions were formed? Why did we have the Varna system? Why did Mahajanapadas form up? Yeah, if you see, the underlying factor is economy. Talk about medieval India. Why did we have Muslim invasions? The Christian missionaries coming into India, all the latest developments that was happening in the medieval India, economy. Modern India, the British policies towards India, what were they aimed at? For facilitating the economy of the British? Talk about the drain of wealth theory and many other angles, economy. And talk about post-independence India, the way the states were reorganized, the way the communal movements happened. What is the reason behind that? Economy. Talk about world history. Yeah, why did the world wars take up? What are the different revolutions around the world? What is the impact of the revolution around the world, and what is the underlying current behind the revolutions of the world? You will notice that it is that economic deprivation or to achieve economic growth. Yeah. So if you see, in all the events of history, the developments of history have happened keeping in mind or to facilitate one important factor, that is economy. Secondly, if you link economy with geography. So what is geography? Geography is an understanding of things around us. Here comes the next question. Why should we know the things around us? What is the advantage for us? Correct? That's the question that comes to our mind. So the understanding of geography, students, is to help us derive the economy out of it, to help us keep ourselves safe and also achieve economy out of it. For example, recently we had a cyclone called as Cyclone Ampan, which came and hit West Bengal. So because we had an understanding of the concept of cyclone, we were able to take the required measures, and also we were able to minimize the death count and the damage caused due to Cyclone Ampan. Yeah. Today, based on our geographical understanding of the various mineral resources, we are accordingly setting up the factories close to that. So this way, we are understanding the geography to derive the economy out of it. So that part of geography which talks about economy is said to be called as economic geography, or also called as human geography, which you will be studying as a part of geography. Economic geography, or also called as the human geography. Talk about economy and polity and governance. Economy, polity and governance. You see that there is a terminology that you will generally come across. It's called as political economy. What will keep a political party in power is their policies and their governance in facilitating the economy of a country. Talk, for instance, the present government. What keeps the present government going? What is the agenda of the present government? What is the aim of all the policies released by the present government? You would notice that if those present policies are able to cater to the economy, they will be gaining the political capital. If the economy is compromised, the political capital of the party will compromised. So the political decisions are taken into consideration, always keeping in mind the economic growth of the country. So there is an interlinkage between the polity and governance and economy. Then if you link economy with international relations, talk about the developments around the world. Yeah, talk about why India and China are having strained relations. India and Nepal are having strained relations. India is having good relations with other countries. So if you notice, the relations behind the countries is based upon the economic aspects between the countries. So it is this economic diplomacy that plays a very, very important role with respect to building our relations with other countries. Yeah. So there is a link between economy and international relations also. And talk about economy and environment and ecology. Students, there is a challenge today whether we need growth. A debatable question is, do we need growth or do we need environment? Global warming is a concept that has been taken out or ignored or discounted by the US government. But there is a global warming, various studies say that. So today the question is, do we need to focus on growth or do we need to focus on environment? Is environment really under our control or not? That is a question. So, how do we balance both? Is it right on our part where we just focus on growth and compromise on the environment? Are we really giving our future generations a responsible future? Are we being responsible in that manner? So, the question is, how do we balance both? Is it possible? There comes the question where how to balance environment and how to balance economy. And there came the keyword called as sustainable development. And today we also have sustainable development goals that has been given to the countries for them to achieve it. So, how do we achieve sustainable development? Talk about the clean energy developments that we are having recently, the solar energy. We are introducing electric vehicles on the road. We are working on nuclear energy. We are working on hydroelectric energy. All the energies which are renewable in nature are being focused upon so that we can balance the growth factor of that and also the environment. So, economy is linked with environment and ecology. Then, talk about economy and science and technology. All the latest developments in the area of technology, in the area of science, is working towards facilitating our economy. Talk about artificial intelligence, talk about Internet of Things, talk about the space technology, talk about the defense technology. End of the day, the focus is upon ensuring the economy to the country. So, economy is always linked with science and technology. Then, economy with internal security. Yeah, students, here you need to understand a relation here. Here in economy, if you notice, whenever the economy is compromised in the Indian society, you will notice that the internal security will become an issue. Recently, to highlight, talk about Naxalism. Which all areas in India are Naxal breeding grounds? If you go to those areas, you will notice that there is absolutely no development. There is no opportunity or hope for the youth. And it is very easy at that moment for the youth to get radicalized towards Naxalism. Talk about terrorism. A recent UN report is saying that the ISIS is breeding grounds in Kerala and Karnataka. The youth of the country is getting radicalized. So, what is the reason behind these things to happen? You would notice that the underlying current is not a healthy economy in place. An economy divided on lines of communal, caustic, religious lines. So, when an economy is healthy, when there is a healthy competition, there is no room for security issues. However, when the economy is compromised, you will realize that the internal security will be compromised. So, it is very important for the government to balance the economy and the security. And talk about economy and ethics, integrity and aptitude. We have a separate paper in UPSC for ethics, integrity and aptitude students. Think of all those times when ethics have been compromised. Yeah? You question yourself, is there any instances where ethics have been compromised? A general answer that comes to your mind is, when I talk about ethics, we think big. But talking about the small ethical issues that generally everyone faces is, for example, if you're caught by a cop, yeah, what will our first thought come to our mind? How can I pay him less and escape, right? Or another time, when was the last time you watched a movie, with a pirated CD? Yeah, what is that factor that is compromising our ethics in any of those instances? Similarly, these examples go bigger wherever the ethics are compromised. So, you will notice that the ethics are compromised in an area where economy comes in place. And how to balance both? That is why we have a separate paper called as Ethics, Integrity and Aptitude. So, students, if you see here, economy as a subject is interlinked with all the subjects. And why am I discussing in this interdisciplinary way is because whatever are the questions being asked in whichever subject, in whichever paper which you are seeing on the screen, we have different questions that can be asked in different papers. But you need to remember that whenever you are writing an answer, you will always need to touch upon all the dimensions of a subject for a wholesome answer and for better marks. And that's where in all the subjects you always have an economic dimension to it. And economy is one subject that is so dynamic. So, when you get an understanding of the subject in this way, you will be able to read the current affairs with its interlinkage with various subjects. And when you read that, you get a comprehensive understanding. You get the map and you get a broader and a bigger eagle-eyed view regarding how the economy is operating, right? So, this is the approach you need to follow with respect to Indian economy. So now that we understood about how to approach Indian economy as a subject, students, now what I'll be discussing is extremely important for you to understand to approach the economy as a subject. So we will be seeing how economy as a subject or a discipline of economy is interlinked with the help of a mind map. Yeah. After this mind map, you will understand the interlinkages of various segments of the economy and how each segment is impacting another segment. So let us connect the dots of Indian economy through the mind map. So the core of economy, the government, the Reserve Bank of India and all the institutions are working for balancing two words in Indian economy. That is, as you see on the screen, it is first one is called as demand and the other one is called as supply. So you would have come across this word, demand and supply. So how do these two keywords interact? So let us try to understand this with the help of a simple example. Economy is a subject which is actually simple if you relate it to simple things and simple understanding. So let us take the example of a pen. Assume I am the owner of the pen and the cost of the pen is 10 rupees. And all of you watching this video are making notes and all of you need a pen. And assume all of you have 10 rupees and you come to me saying that, sir, I need a pen. So I will say that I am the only one having the pen and you all have 10 rupees. So do you think that I'll sell the pen to you at 10 rupees? No, I will increase the price here. Now what is that factor that is making me increase the price here? That is too much demand from your side and minimum supply from my side is increasing the prices of the product. So if demand is high, supply is less, this is referred to as what is called as inflation. Inflation. Yeah, a persistent increase in the prices of a product is referred to as inflation. On the other hand, if the supply is high and the demand is less, if the supply is high and the demand is less, this could also lead to another scenario called as deflation. Deflation. So, inflation and deflation would be one of the chapters that we will be reading with. That is, the imbalance of demand and supply leads to either inflation or deflation. So, post this understanding, now let us try to see what are the factors that lead to demand, what are the factors that lead to supply. So, here if you notice students, when does demand increase? When you ask yourself, when does demand increase? Let me give you an example. For your proactive participation, assume I give each one of you 1 lakh rupee. So, when I give you 1 lakh rupee, what would you do when you get 1 lakh rupee? The moment you get the money, don't you think of going and buying something? Now, what is that factor that is driving that purchasing instinct in you? The purchasing instinct in you is picked up because of money. So, the flow of money will determine the demand in an economy. So, since the demand is linked specifically to money, we will be linking the demand part of the economy to the institution that handles the money flow in the economy, the institution that issues the money flow in the economy. And as you guessed it right, which is that institution, which is the primary institution that determines how much money should flow in the economy, how much money should be printed in the economy? The primary institution for that is Reserve Bank of India, RBI, Reserve Bank of India. So, you all would have heard of Reserve Bank of India. Students, think for a moment, can we open an account with Reserve Bank of India as an individual? Absolutely not. It is the banks which in turn have accounts with Reserve Bank of India. It is a banker's bank. So, since Reserve Bank of India is also talking about the monetary flow in the economy and Reserve Bank of India is also responsible for the management of the banks in the country. So, we will be studying the Reserve Bank of India, which is the regulator of money markets, and we will be studying the chapter of money markets along with Reserve Bank of India. So, what are these money markets? What do we study as a part of the chapter? Here you need to note that money market is a market which cater to the loan requirements of the government and the commercial institutions for less than 3 years in a general definition. As a part of money markets, we will be studying about the banking system of India and also the sub-markets which act as those underlying currents for the activities of the banking institutions. So, all these segments we study as a part of money market. And who is the regulator of money market? Who regulates the activities of these institutions? It is Reserve Bank of India. So, we will be studying the Reserve Bank of India and the money market on the demand side of the economy. Now, when it comes to the money part of it, or let us say when it comes to the loan requirement, when you need to open a business, where do you go for a loan? Generally, we go for a loan with respect to banks. Or let us say I am already an established institution, I need to expand my business. Where do I go for a loan? I go to a bank. But are there any institutions which can give me loan for a longer time? Or are there any institutions which are an alternative to banks for me to get the loans, for me to raise the capital? Here I see that there is a challenge with respect to money markets. For example, if you take today's scenario, most of the banks are suffering with NPA crisis. Students, have you heard of NPA crisis? Check for yourself. What is NPA? Non-performing asset. So, most of the banks are suffering today because of NPA crisis, and if you notice recently we also are having bank mergers happening. So, we will discuss that clearly as a part of the chapter money market. But here we need to understand that do we have an alternative to the bank for capital formation? And yes, today we have one, that is apart from the money market. If you want the finances, we can go to another type of market that is called as capital market. Capital market. Capital markets. So, capital market is a market which caters to the loan requirement or which facilitates the capital formation which is long term in nature. And the capital markets are regulated by the regulatory institution SEBI. What is SEBI? Securities Exchange Board of India. And as a part of capital market, students, we will understand what are the various tools that are there in the capital market for raising the capital. Where all can government use these tools for raising the capital for its requirements? So, that will be our understanding as a part of our chapters capital market and money market. Together, both the capital market and money market form the umbrella called as Indian financial system. Indian financial system. Indian financial system. So, here students, you need to note that just like how blood is important in our body for function, similarly money is the fuel that drives the economy. We always need to have the channels for the money to flow across the economy. To give you an example, what will happen if the money flow stops is demonetization that occurred in 2016. When the 500 rupee note and 1000 rupee note was removed from the country, literally 86% of the currency was removed from the circulation. And just imagine a 130 crore population operating with 14% of currency. Would that drive the economy possibly? A very big challenge. So, the GDP dropped by 2% that time. So, here you need to note that always when there are effective institutions facilitating and dispersing the money, that is when the economy will truly grow. So, in this regard, as we saw, we have two options, that is the money market and also we have the capital market. But let me introduce you to one set of new institutions that are also coming in, which are not under the regulatory purview specifically to RBI or SEBI, but it could be under the regulatory purview of any of the institutions which are regulating that sector. These are financial institutions in various sectors. That is, between capital market and money market, we have one set of institutions, they are called as NBFCs. NBFC. What is NBFC? Non-banking financial companies. Non-banking financial companies. Let me give you an example. Talk about the example of Muthoot Finance. I am sure you might have heard of it. Manipuram Finance. When you go to such institutions, you park your gold and they give you cash. They are doing the work of a bank, but are they a bank? No. They are non-banking financial companies. So, such institutions are today facilitating the money flow in the economy. So, similarly, there are many such institutions which are there, which are called as NBFCs. If they are performing operations which are under the regulatory purview of RBI, they come under RBI purview. If they are under the regulatory purview of SEBI, they come under SEBI purview. So, it is not regulated by one institution, but based on the activity, different regulators take their regulation. So, they are called as non-banking financial companies. Yeah. So, we will be seeing this segment as a part of demand side. So, students, if you see today in Indian economy, if demand is lacking, you should always relate to what is the health of these markets, what is the health of Indian financial system. To analyze the health of Indian financial system, you have to analyze the health of money market, that is the banking sector, the health of the capital market, which are stock exchanges, and also the health of NBFC sector. Today, the scenario is that all the three channels, that is capital markets, money markets, and the NBFCs are facing challenging times. So, the government is taking a good set of reforms with respect to improving the state of condition of these markets. So, as a part of these chapters, we will also see what are the reforms taken up by the government and how effective they are, and what is the way forward to come out of this crisis. So, that is on the demand side of the economy. So, by now I hope you understood as to what is the factors behind the demand. We understood that it is the money that will drive the demand, and what are the markets that facilitate the money in India, that is money markets, capital markets, and NBFCs, right. So, that is related to the demand. I hope you understood till now. Next is the supply part of the economy. Students, we saw that the demand part of the economy is facilitated by Reserve Bank of India and also other institutions related to it, specifically Reserve Bank of India. However, if you look at the supply part of the economy, students, you will realize that the supply part of the economy is handled by the government. It is handled by the government. It is handled by the government. Let me give you an example. A year and a half back, the tur dal prices, tur dal is something that we generally have. The tur dal prices touched 100 rupees per kg. So, this is a commodity that we use on a daily basis, and people were panicked as to what will happen to their diet if the prices go so high. And then the government intervened and they attacked the black marketing holders. First step. The second step was they blocked the export of tur dal by increasing the export duties. Thereby, they increased the supply in the economy. So, similarly, whenever the supply side constraints are there, who is that authority that is taking steps to improve the supply side constraints? You will notice that it is the government institutions and the government personnel who are facilitating the supply side of the economy. Tomorrow, you all as officers will be working on specifically the supply side of the economy to facilitate the good supply chain management. And we also have a syllabus in UPSC that is about supply chain management. So, the supply part of the economy is always handled by the government. And here when you talk about government, we will be understanding how government is getting financed for its functioning, since it is economy. So, the discipline of economy which talks about the financing of the government is referred to as public finance. Public finance. Students, whenever you come across the word called public, public means government. Financing the government, how it is being done? How is government getting its money for its operations? And you might have guessed it right, it is through taxes. What are direct taxes? What are indirect taxes? Are our system of taxation effective or not? And what are the alternatives that we have apart from taxes? All these aspects we read as a part of the chapter, public finance. And once we know how the government is financed, the next thing is, what is the vision of the government with respect to implementing its money? What is the government doing, or what is the plan of the government with respect to spending of the money that is collected as taxes? So, for the planning of India, for a vision to the government, yeah, we need planning. And post independence, we had an institution called as Planning Commission of India. Until 2014, it functioned. And post 2014, the Planning Commission of India was shifted to become Niti Aayog. So, all these segments, the transition behind these institutions, what are the different 5-year plans and how it evolved, and what is this new institution of Niti Aayog and what is its vision? All these aspects we see as a part of the chapter planning. So, the government is getting its funding and the government is utilizing the planning to effectively function. And what is the government planning towards? That is the next question. What is the government planning towards? The government is planning towards building infrastructure. And what is meant by infrastructure? Anything that you can feel and touch is referred to as infrastructure. But there is also a set of infrastructure which cannot be felt and touched, it is intangible in nature. So, when we talk about infrastructure that you can feel and touch, what comes to our mind is agriculture, manufacturing, services, which are primary, secondary, and tertiary sector. We have transportation, we have energy, and there are many such sectors. So, the focus of the government with respect to the planning is to build the infrastructure of our country to promote the welfare of the people. But the question here is, can the government alone do this? Talk about education, talk about health. Today you see that there is a health crisis in our country and the government institutions has various lacunae that has been highlighted by the media. So, is the government doing its war against corona pandemic alone, or who is along with the government? And you would rightly have guessed, it is the government along with the private sector that is working towards the problems faced by the country. So, always the government is working in synergy to the private sector. And students, this is called as mixed economy, an economy where private will also function, the government will also function, and many a times there will also be a synergy. And if government works in synergy with the private sector, it is called as PPP, PPP, that is public-private partnership. And the public-private partnership is an investment model, and there are various investment models of public-private partnership. For what reason? For building infrastructure. For building infrastructure. So, infrastructure in our country is extremely important, and World Bank says that India needs $1 trillion for building its infrastructure. But the question is, does Indian government have so much money? Can Indian tax people for so much money? Absolutely not. But what they can do is they can work in synergy with the private to build the infrastructure. So, students, to help you understand what is a PPP example, to give you a simple example, if you are going on a highway, you might have stopped to pay a toll. So, why do we pay toll on a highway? The reason behind that is because the private sector would have built the road and the government would have facilitated the private sector to build a road because they wanted to promote the welfare of the people. The private sector would have built the road, and after building the road, they need to recover the cost and the profit, and the government would have allowed the private sector to set up a toll booth. And after the private has recovered its cost and the profit, the private will let go of the toll and the road is let free for the public. So, if you notice, it's a win-win situation for both the government and the private sector. The government is getting to promote the welfare of the people by setting up the road, and the private is able to offer more jobs and also make profit by setting up the road. So, this way there is a synergy between the government and the private sector, that is called as public-private partnership, and the public-private partnership is there to facilitate the infrastructure. So, students, if you notice, this entire mind map on the demand side of the economy and the supply side of the economy, if you notice, these are the segments that are working actively to balance these two, that is demand and supply. And this entire transaction is happening within the territory of India. So, what is a chapter where we are talking about the economy in India in interaction with the international economy? So, the chapter that is talking about economy in India in interaction with international economy is called as, is the chapter external sector trade and capital, is the chapter external sector, is a chapter called as external sector, is a chapter called as external sector. So, students, external sector is a chapter where we would be discussing about what are exports of India, what are the imports of India, what are the concepts behind rupee depreciation, rupee appreciation, what are balance of payments, and all the challenges faced in the international markets with respect to the economy is being dealt as a part of the chapter external sector. Students, to give you a few examples regarding this, take a guess as to what could be the highest imported product in India. Yes, some would have been some would have taken the right guess, that is crude oil. India imports its oil. That's the first thing. Second, can you guess what is the second highest imported commodity in India? You will notice, you will be surprised that it is gold. We are spending our precious foreign currency reserves, that is, we are paying in dollars to get gold. And for what reason we are doing with gold? We as Indians have a sentiment, have a behavior that gold is an asset that you can keep for the future, and people will buy physical gold and keep it in the lockers. We have close to 20 to 30,000 tons of gold in India lying in lockers. So here, if you notice, the behavioral economics will try to understand these phenomena. So external sector is one chapter which talks about these trends and what measures the government is taking to tackle these trends. So that is external sector. And a corollary to the external sector chapter would be, what is that international institution that facilitates a free and fair trade around the world? Yeah, for example, why is India opposing the duties, or is opposing the reduction of duties for Harley Davidson bike? Yeah, Harley Davidson would cost not around 3 or 4 lakh maximum in US, but in India it is 100% duties are charged. So what is the intention behind that? Yeah, why can't we allow all the Chinese goods to just be sold as it is in India? Yeah, so what are the problems behind that? Students, you will notice that if a pen is being manufactured in China at 10 rupees, the capacity of a country like China is to manufacture this pen at around 50 paise or to 1 rupee. That is how strong and big they are with respect to the manufacturing sector. So if we do not have the right tariff barriers, the goods will get flooded in the country and the domestic market would be spoiled. So keeping these intentions in mind, there are various instruments that are being used by the country with respect to external sector, so that there is a balance between the domestic market's growth and also the global market and its interaction with our country. So all these aspects we read as a part of the chapter external sector. Then, which is that institution that handles these things? The institution that handles that is, you would have guessed it right, it is World Trade Organization. So the World Trade Organization is the chapter that we will be reading as a logical corollary to external sector. And apart from World Trade Organization, we will also be reading the various economic international organizations such as the United Nations. We are talking about International Monetary Fund. Yeah, all these aspects we read as a part of the along with the chapter World Trade Organization, right? So students, now if you see, we have dealt with what is happening in the Indian territory, the economy with respect to within the Indian territory, plus India's interaction with the other countries is dealt as a part of the chapter external sector and World Trade Organization. So together, when we compute what is the income of the country within India, what is the income of the country through international operations, together we will be able to compute what is called as the national income of our country. We will be able to compute what is called as the national income of our country. National income of our country. So when we compute the national income of our country, when we get to know what is the true income the country is making, we will be able to take effective steps. The government will be able to budget the expenditures keeping in mind the income of the country. So this way, with the effective national income of our country, the channel of the efforts of the government can be towards what is called as human development. Human development. So the countries lately are focusing upon not just the economic angle for development. The countries are also focusing upon the various wholesome development of a human being. Yeah, human development as a concept came in 1990s, introduced by our Nobel laureate Amartya Sen and Mahmood Haq, where the focus was upon working on human development, which is the true development, and they focused on various parameters to do the same. So when the national income of a country is focused upon, when the national income of a country is known, the government can take active steps towards taking various measures for development. And here we are linking the chapter of human development along with national income with this logic, right? Now, if a human is developed with respect to good education, good health and a good standard of living, what will happen? What can we solve? What is the problem that is there in India that we can solve now? The problem is poverty and unemployment. Poverty and unemployment. Yeah. So what is meant by poverty? How do we eradicate poverty? What are the challenges behind eradication of poverty? What are the different types of unemployment we have in our country? To what percentage of our population is unemployed? All these aspects we see as a part of the chapter, poverty and unemployment. And students, here, this is how the linkage of the economy is. But end of the day, if we have to tackle poverty, if we have to tackle unemployment, we need to create jobs. And where are the jobs that we can create from? Which sector can be tapped into, which we can create jobs? And when you can link, when you can build the infrastructure of our country, we will automatically be able to tackle the poverty and unemployment. So when the entire economy is growing together, this is called as inclusive growth. Inclusive growth. Inclusive growth. So students, this is how the economy as a subject has to be analyzed. So let us say the first chapter, let's recap. So the demand and the supply part of the economy is what we saw, and here if the demand and supply is imbalanced, the inflation and deflation will be the first chapter that we are dealing with, followed by the money market and the Reserve Bank of India, which will be the second chapter. SEBI and the capital market will be the third chapter. The public finance will be the fourth chapter. Planning will be the fifth chapter that we will be reading with. And then the sixth chapter will be external sector trade and capital. The seventh chapter will be World Trade Organization. And the eighth chapter will be national income. Ninth is human development. 10th is poverty and unemployment. And the 11th chapter will be PPP along with infrastructure. And the 12th chapter will be inclusive growth. Students, this is how the journey we will be going through for understanding economy as a subject with respect to UPSC, and especially with respect to infrastructure as a chapter. Students, here you need to note that in infrastructure as a chapter, we have two documents that are coming out by the government every year in the month of February, that is economic survey and the budget. And as a part of economic survey, what is economic survey? It is a survey of the economy of the last 1 year, which will be coming in the month of February. And we also have budget, which is the vision of the government for the next 1 year. So the economy from the last 1 year and the vision of the government from February till the next year. These are the two documents which give an overall idea about the state of economy and the vision of the government towards the further developments in the economy. Those documents, whatever are the relevant aspects related to these documents, will be studied as a part of the chapter of infrastructure. What are the latest developments with respect to agriculture, manufacturing, services, transport, energy, education and health? All these aspects we read as a part of infrastructure chapter, right? So students, this is the mind map to understand how economy is interlinked. Everything is fine, sir. So how do we interlink this with our syllabus? So you might get a doubt. So how do we understand this mind map with respect to the syllabus? So let us try to see that particular aspect. If you see that particular aspect, yeah. So how do we understand this with respect to the syllabus of the UPSC? So let us see that. So now try to link what we read as a part of the mind map with respect to the syllabus, and try to see if you are able to figure out where we are interlinking it. The prelim syllabus is very weak, so let us try to see with respect to mains how relevant our analysis is. So if you notice here with respect to the economy, you will notice that we have talked about planning, we have talked about the issues of economy, and we are talking about the mobilization of the resources, with respect to the infrastructure. We are talking about growth, development and employment. Yeah, talk about if these keywords have come into place. Then we spoke about inclusive growth and the challenges and issues that are arising out of it. We have spoken about government budgeting as a part of public finance. Then we will be talking about the liberalization of the economy with respect to the external sector. Then we also have changes in industrial policy, effects on industrial growth. We will be studying this as a part of infrastructure when we are talking about the secondary sector. Then we are talking about, when we talk about infrastructure, we have energy, ports, roads, airways, railways, which is nothing but the transportation sector. And talking about the investment models, we will be talking about PPP, public private partnership. So students, if you try to analyze the keywords now and try to link with the mind map, you will notice that the syllabus, what has been discussed, we will be able to interlink as a connection with respect to the mind map, right? And talking about agriculture, agriculture as a segment is dealt completely under the agriculture segment of UPSC, agriculture of the under the mind map. So this is the distribution of the syllabus. So now that we understood about how the mind map works and how the subjects are interlinked and how the chapters are interlinked, now let us see how questions have been asked. What are the trends of economy with respect to prelims and how the questions are being asked from the various chapters. So let us understand with that with the help of a trend analysis. So if you analyze the trend of economy as a subject in prelims according to our mind map, students, you will notice that since 2013 when the syllabus changed, we are analyzing the trend, and here if you see the trends here, you will notice that till now, till 2019, we have around 166 questions that has been asked from economy and agriculture. And if you notice the first thing, that is the weightage of agriculture, we have around 32 questions out of 166 that has been asked. And from various chapters, we have various trends of questions being asked. But here students, what is meant by these trends? Should we go by these trends? Please understand this. How do we utilize this trends in economy as a concept for UPSC? First thing is, economy as a subject is very dynamic. The questions that are being asked in the economy as a subject is based on the concepts which are in current affairs. So students, first thing, that is what you need to understand. And the second thing to get your questions correct with respect to economy as a subject is always rework on the previous year papers. We have around 166 questions and each question has 4 options. And see the amount of database you will be able to build by solving each of the questions and understanding which option is correct, which is wrong, and what does that option mean. Every point provided in the option of previous year papers will be or can be asked as a question in the next years. For example, there was a question on ease of doing business index which was asked in UPSC as to who is the authority behind the ease of doing business. But in the next year, the question was about what are the parameters that are asked with respect to ease of doing business index. So this is how a trends is just to help you understand how many questions has been asked in which chapter. But here you need to always notice a 3-step approach when we are taking notes with respect to economy. Always we have to first discuss the concepts, learn the concepts of all of these chapters, then link the concepts with current affairs. And whenever you are going through the current affairs, always try to segregate them according to the chapters, according to these chapters, according to a classification of the mind map that we come across. For example, if there is a news with respect to Reserve Bank of India, put it under the money market chapter. If there is a news with respect to taxes, put it under the public finance chapter. So this way, or this segregation will always help you with interlinking the mind map and getting the connection, right? So always link the concepts with current affairs. And if the concept is in current affairs, students, please understand this, the chances of this concept being asked as question is very high. So always check what has been asked about this concept with respect to previous year papers. When I say previous year papers, yeah, the first importance is to tackle the previous year papers with respect to economy from 2013 to 2019. But if you still have further time, you can always go back and start referring what are the questions being asked with respect to economy in the previous year papers in further years. but economy being a dynamic subject, yeah, it is mostly current affairs oriented, so it will not be much relevant when you go beyond 2013. So this is how the trends in economy with respect to prelims have to be used and how to analyze or approach the subject of economy. So now with this understanding that we have, let us try to see the various questions that have been asked in various chapters with respect to UP, with respect to these subjects. So let us see one by one. So we shall see a few questions that have been asked in the prelims perspective and the mains perspective with respect to the various chapters that we discussed. So the first chapter is inflation and deflation. So students, if you look at the question on prelims with respect to inflation and deflation, you will realize that the question is about inflation and which of the statements are correct. And if you focus on the statements here, you will notice that the question is not about the formula related to inflation or how inflation is calculated specifically with respect to the numericals, but it is with respect to the concept and the application of the concept. Students, for those of you who dread economy, who are not from an economy background, what I like to say is that economy as a subject in UPSC is more theory oriented, application oriented, and not numericals. So it is the linkage of the concept with the current affairs. The happenings of the current affairs is what is being checked as a part of economy subject. So if you look at the mains part of it, you see that they have asked a question saying, this was asked in around 2016 or 17 approximately, wherein here they are asking that, do you agree? They are asking, do you agree with a particular view? So what do we identify, what do we learn from this question is that whenever you are coming across a current affairs, always build an opinion regarding that. What is your view regarding it? And based on that view, they are also saying that give reasons in support of your arguments. So whenever you have a view, you should always back your view with a particular argument, with a particular fact. So the arguments, facts, and the reasons behind your view should always be highlighted. And here they are talking about a view regarding an economic concept wherein having a steady growth and a low inflation, has it kept our economy in a good shape? That is an argument that was happening, and what was the view that you stated on? And students, remember this, there is no right and there is no wrong answer in UPSC. Whatever is the choice that you are taking, whatever is the stand that you are taking, the best arguments that you give for that is what will help you fetch good marks. So this is a type of questions that are being asked with respect to inflation and deflation. So let us try to see further. So if you look at the money market, you will notice that the question is about, here I have put this question to help you understand a trend. The trend is that if you look at this question, the question in prelims in the year 2015 was regarding Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana, JDY. I'm sure you might have heard of it. It is related to the promoting financial inclusion, and it is also related to opening of bank accounts with respect to basic saving bank account in our country. And now again it is in news because the Jan Dhan Yojana has achieved 40 crore. It has covered more than 40 crore people, and it has helped, or it has facilitated the opening of bank accounts. And if you notice, in 2016, a question has been asked with respect to the mains related to Jan Dhan Yojana. So if you notice the question in prelims, the question is about what is Jan Dhan Yojana as a scheme and what is it launched for. But in 2016, the first year anniversary of that, where the question was about with respect to, has JDY, Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana, is it necessary for bringing the people into institutional financial fold? And they're also asking, do you agree with a particular view? And they're also saying, give arguments to justify your opinion. Students, here the focus is not on the concept. Please understand this. Everyone has knowledge with respect to approaching UPSC, but it is not the knowledge that will really help you get maximum marks. Please get this right. The role of knowledge in UPSC is only 40%, but 60% is with respect to presentation. Are you catering to what is being asked in the question? That is what is being asked upon. That is what is being checked upon. And that is why we say, once you learn the concept and link it with current affairs, your job is only 40% done. But the rest is about how do you represent that information. That is the 60% that will help you get good marks. So, that is with respect to money markets and the type of questions that are being asked from money markets. Then, if you talk about, let us say, capital markets, the focus of the questions is on the instruments. Here, if you notice, the question is about a very interesting instrument called as masala bonds. Why do we need it? And who introduced it? And how can government make use of it? And can only government make use of it, or anyone else can make use of it? So, concept or instrument based questions are being asked in prelims with respect to capital markets. And if you look at the mains question, the question is with respect to taxes and how the dividend distribution tax and introduction of long term capital gains tax has an impact on capital markets. So, here in the segment of main students, what you need to understand is that if you notice here, this was a news and this was directly discussed in the union budget and made good discussion even in current affairs of that year. And they have asked a direct question, comment. They are asking your opinion again. Please note this. They are asking your opinion and they want your arguments for your opinion regarding a particular view that has been taken up. And this is the approach for mains. So, building of opinions is what is the approach for mains. Then, next, talking about public finance. Students, public finance is a chapter where polity and economy merge. Yeah. For example, Article 112 of our Indian Constitution talks about an annual financial statement that shall be passed every year. Yeah. And here, the economic side of the public finance is what is being spoken about in this discipline of economy. And here, if you talk about public finance, the question is about with respect to FRBM Act, Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management Act, and which of the following are the concerns or what is it related to. And if you look at mains, the question is again asked in 2013 as to what are the reasons for introduction and discuss critically the salient features and its effectiveness. So, they are saying that whenever something has been introduced, you should know the reasons behind its introduction and you should also know what are the features behind it, and you need to be able to critically analyze the features behind it. So, students, these are models that you need to pick up. So, whenever you're reading a current affairs, you should think what could be asked as UPSC question. Please understand this. A mistake that is done by students is they start mugging up facts for UPSC. They start focusing on trivial information with respect to UPSC. UPSC is not one examination which is talking about trivial things. Please understand this. You are in the top of the hierarchy and you should have an eagle eye view regarding things. And you are not in the bottom and you are not writing a clerk exam. You are writing an officer level exam where you are in the top of the hierarchy, and the questions that are being asked in UPSC is also such that they are asking about the macro economy and not the individual aspects or clerical aspects related to that. And if you look at the questions also, you would notice that they are asking the broader aspects of it and not the minute aspects of it. So, the thing is that you need to remember is the secret of this exam is don't try to remember. Try to understand, try to integrate, and try to critically think about certain things. Back your arguments with facts. Collect your arguments effectively, and that is how you will be able to write effective answers. So, that is with respect to public finance. Students, if you talk about planning as another chapter that we will be discussing, if you see here, the questions are with respect to the 5-year plans. The questions are with respect to the 5-year plans. And if you look at the mains, the question is with respect to how the principles of Niti Aayog are different from those followed by Planning Commission. This was a direct question that has been asked in mains because of a current event that happened. Next, if you look at infrastructure chapter, the question is about a scheme that is Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana as a part of prelims. And if you look at mains, the questions that have been repeatedly asked in 13 and 14 is with respect to the public-private partnership, which we are discussing about, or the models of public-private partnership. And if you look at the mains question again, why am I discussing the mains question is because students start with absolutely no idea as to what UPSC is asking, what UPSC could question, how it could question, how to make use of the notes or the classes that you have come across with respect to UPSC. That is a question or a doubt with which every student starts his preparation. By understanding the models, Forget about the concept, students. So our focus is not on knowledge in this session. The focus is totally upon how to present, what to view in a particular topic, and that will help you effectively channel your preparation, your efforts towards it. So if you look at the questions, they are asking, if you look at this question here, they are asking, explain a particular phenomenon and what arrangements are needed to be put in place to effectively achieve what is there. So they are asking you to explain the PPP arrangement in long gestation infrastructure projects can transfer unsustainable liabilities to the future. So they have given a view and they are asking what arrangements can be in place to ensure that the successive generation capacities are not compromised. This was a question that is asked which was in current affairs. If you look at the 13th question, the question was about adopting PPP model for infrastructure development has not been free of criticism. Critically discuss. So whenever a concept is being introduced, whenever a model is being introduced, always you have to see the pros and the cons and analyze them critically. What are the challenges that they face? That can be asked as a question. So similarly, they have also asked about with respect to PPP model for airport development, PPP model with respect to various infrastructure development. So if you analyze a mind map, you will be able to interlink the subject. Why PPP? Where infrastructure comes? Where is it is coming on the supply side of the economy. Try to visualize the mind map again, you will get an interlinkage, right? Next is, if you notice about external sector trade and capital, the prelims questions is about with respect to the trends with respect to external debt, trends with respect to how is our external debt dominated with imports, exports. Yeah, if you talk about mains, here the focus is upon, and again a current affairs issue, where the focus is upon the labor intensive manufacturing sector and capital intensive exports. And they are saying that account for the failure, observe for the word, account for the failure. What are the factors that led to the failure? That is, you need to know the factors behind it and also suggest the measures. Students, if you notice, always when a problem is occurring in economy, there is a link to the past. When you account the factors that are led to the problem of Indian economy, you will be able to even resolve them, and that is the measures for your future. Let's say an example now. Present economy is facing with corona crisis and the economy is contracted. The GDP has contracted by 23.9% approximately, which is one of the largest contraction that we have gone through in the past 4 decades. The opposition government is saying that the economy is not gone down by act of God, but it is the policies formulated by the government that has made the economy worse during the pandemic scenario. And they are saying that the root of the slowdown in the economy is demonetization. So if you account the economy from demonetization, you will be able to figure out how the things have connected to bring the economy down right now. Similarly, for any problem that the economy is facing, or in any subject for that matter, if a problem or a challenge is placed, the reason behind that will be in the past. And when we can resolve the past, when we can find solutions for the events of the past or learn from the past, we will be able to resolve the challenges that could come in the future. That is what is being checked as a part of the questions in UPSC. So this is what students that you need to look at whenever you're reading your current affairs. And then talk about international economic organizations. The questions in prelims can be with respect to any international economic organization. And if you look at the mains question, with respect to World Trade Organization, especially, the questions are being asked. And in World Trade Organization, the major debate that is going on for a while is with respect to food security bill. So the question is about discuss the apprehensions in the effective implementation of the bill and what concerns has it generated in WTO. So that is what they are checking as a question. So how is food security bill expected to eliminate hunger and malnutrition, and how they are asking discuss the apprehensions with its effective implementation along with the concerns it has generated in WTO. So here, this is how the questions are being asked with respect to mains, again with respect to current affairs. Then National income. When you come to this chapter of national income, just try to visualize where did you see national income as a part of our mind map. And here, the question is again, observe the questions. They are saying the GDP has increased by 4 times in the last 10 years. They are observing a trend. They are also saying that the percentage share of public sector in GDP has declined in the last 10 years. Observe for the trend. They are asking the trends with respect to GDP, trends with respect to debt to GDP ratio, and many other concepts. So, when you go and read about national income, you always have to go through the trends with respect to all these phenomena, and the questions that can be asked from that have higher chances. And talk about mains, again, the question is about agreeing with a view if GDP growth should be accompanied with low inflation or high inflation. So, that is the type of questions that are being asked from national income. Students, this is called as trend stacking, understanding the trends in each chapter and how UPSC is thinking. Just like when we go to a battle, when we go to a match, a cricket match, how does the Indian team think? Indian team will always view the strategies of the opponent team and plan its strategies. So, similarly, when we are approaching the UPSC exam, please understand this. Always you have to understand the mindset of the examiner, and you can understand the mindset of the examiner only when you go through the previous year questions. And that's when you can pick it up. So, before you are starting your preparation now, with these ideas and thoughts in mind, you will be able to confidently read the subject, confidently approach the subject, and build the skills that are necessary for us to crack the exam. We all are here today with a primary goal of clearing the exam, and knowledge is one of that, and knowledge is not everything. So, with this understanding, if you proceed, your chances of clearing the exam is very high. Next, poverty and unemployment. Students, if you see in prelims, the questions can be on both poverty and unemployment. And if you see the prelims question here, it is about in a given year, the poverty lines are higher in some states than in other. Why? A question has been clearly asked. Application oriented question, which was in news, but you can also apply your logic and come to the answer. Then, if you look at the mains, they have asked a question. Look at this question. The question is about how globalization has led to reduction of employment in formal sector. So, what is our general understanding? We say that if we globalize, we will have more brands, foreign brands coming into India, and we will have more formal jobs creating. That's what our idea is. To give you a simple example, because we are globalized, we have brands such as McDonald's, KFC into India. And McDonald's and KFC has given us a lot of employment, no doubt about it. But the question, look at the question here. The question is how globalization has led to reduction of employment in formal sector. This is a dimension of globalization that you need to catch on. And they are making a statement that as is increased informalization detrimental to the development of the country. So, students, if you notice this, here you need to have a clarity of the concept of globalization, and here you need to have a clarity of the concept of informal economy. And how is India's informal economy is? And here if you notice, these are called as application based questions. When you approach an examination, you might have a clarity of a concept, but you won't have thought of the answer. You won't have read this answer specifically. That moment you have to brainstorm points and make points and write the answer. This is that skill that comes when you have clarity on the concepts, when you are able to interlink the things, when you study according to the syllabus, right? So, this is how mains questions are asked with respect to poverty and unemployment. And especially with respect to poverty and unemployment, a great number of questions has been asked in essay also. So, whenever you are studying for a subject, you can also be asked from the essay perspective. So, essay is nothing but a collation of all the subjects. So, economy should be viewed in all these angles. This is called as a synergy of knowledge. Next. So, these are some of the questions, these are some of the chapters that we saw as a part of our mind map, and how the questions can be stacked, and how the current affairs that you read can be stacked according to the subject. And when you have everything as a part of the mind map, it's all about interlinking and writing beautiful answers using the mind map. So, this slide here is pretty much advanced for you, it might be, but this is to give you a direction as to how to think. The direction is whenever you're reading a current affairs, please do not focus or let the focus not be on information alone. Please understand this. The information turns to knowledge only when you can use that information. So, how do we study the current affairs? How do we build that current affairs? Is whenever there is an issue that you're reading, always read the issue and build an opinion. Always when you're thinking, your thought has to be as to what can be the conclusion. What is your opinion about a particular thing? For example, if today the government has introduced Ayushman Bharat scheme, what is your conclusion about it? What is your conclusion or opinion about the new education policy introduced by the government? Good or bad? Your opinion, your conclusion should be your first thought in your mind. And based on that conclusion that you have, you should build your arguments to support that conclusion. And the arguments should be supported by facts and concepts. So this is called as a funnel approach whenever you are thinking for a subject. Build this pattern of thinking. Let your notes be in this format. And when you do notes where you're thinking in this format, what happens is whenever you read a question, you'll automatically think in this way and there'll be a logical flow in your answers. So start thinking in this way, and answer writing is a distant thing which you will be trained later on. But this funnel approach is something that you need to have in your mind, and when you start in this manner, you will start critically thinking on each aspect, and every statement that you're making will be backed by facts and concepts. The focus of this preparation is about note making. The effective notes you have, the effective arguments you have, the quality facts, the quality data related to the conclusion that you have will help you write better answers in the examination. Students, this is the game of mains. This is the game of interview. Let me tell you, though the exam is prelims, mains and interview, the preparation should not be prelims, mains and interview. It should be reverse, interview, mains and prelims. What I mean by that is forming opinions is your interview preparation. Arguments for that opinions is your mains preparation. And the conceptual clarity, the facts related to that is called as prelims preparation. So when you have an integrated preparation, students, you will see that the preparation is a beautiful flow and you will not be burdened as the time passes by. And you still have a good number of days for you to write the exam. And when you start training your mind in this manner, when you constantly work in this model, you will be able to get excellent marks in the examination. So I welcome you all for this amazing journey of Indian economy that we'll be taking in the further classes ahead. So be prepared before the class, come to the class effectively and watch the sessions and ask as many doubts as possible and get the maximum benefit out of the session. So with this, I would like to end the session and I thank you all for the journey that we are about to take with respect to Indian economy.